these need to be moved to each of us, or?
You
No.
probably
No,
want.
they said they'll pick it up if you just
Okay.
talk naturally. And it is being
This
picked
one's
up,
picking me
correct?
up right now.
Yeah, you can hear
It
it.
should, yeah. Don't get too close to it. And that might cut down on.
We're ready to go? Okay, we're going to begin. Good evening, everyone. I'm Hope Tremblay, editor of the Westfield News. The Westfield News and Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce are happy to sponsor tonight's Candidate Forum in partnership with WSKB Radio and Westfield Community Programming Channel 15, as well as our hosts at Westfield Technical Academy. I want to especially note the Horticulture Technology Program, who provided these beautiful flowers and pumpkins for us, and I have it on good authority they are for sale if anyone's interested after. This is going to be live streamed and it will be recorded, and you will be able to watch it on Channel 15 prior to the election, so keep checking their website and the Westfield News, and we'll let you know when that will be playing. Tonight's forum is for incumbent and candidates for City Council at large. We have 12 candidates tonight, so we're gonna be here a while. Get comfy. Our incumbents are Dan Alley, Brent Bean, Matt Emershai, Dave Flaherty, and Cindy Harris. Our candidates are Jim Adams, Kristen Mello, Dan Moyardi, Rudy Mustrate, Rick Sullivan, Andrew Surprise, and Matt Van Heinigen. Candidates, our rules tonight. You will each have a 2-minute opening introduction. Each candidate will be asked the same series of 3 questions with up to 2 minutes to respond. We will rotate the questions in groups, and I will prompt you to respond when it's your turn. We will end with a 2-minute closing statement from each candidate. I'm going to be your moderator this evening, and Chamber Director Kate Phelan will be keeping time. Kate's down here in the front. We have a lighted timer tonight, fancy stuff we've borrowed. A green light indicates that you should speak. The yellow light indicates 15 seconds, and the red light means time is up. On behalf of the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce and Reminder Publishing's Westfield News, I thank the candidates for participating in this very important forum, and I thank the audience for joining us here and those who are watching. Please vote November 5th and exercise your right to participate in local government. We will now have opening statements from each candidate, who are seated in alphabetical order. Jim Adams, you can please begin your introduction. You each have 2 minutes.
So I guess I'm first. I'm being AM. It always happens. I hope it's the same way on Election Day. Just kidding, trying to loosen up a little bit. I was born and raised in Westfield. I attend the local schools here. I'm a 1984 graduate of this school. That's going to be a good trivia question one of these days. Who's the last counselor to be a graduate of Westfield Trade School? It'd be me. And I'm proud of that. I've raised 4 children. Lindsay, Bridget, Josh, and Courtney. Lindsay was an 03 graduate of Westfield High School. Bridget was an 05 graduate of Westfield High School. Josh was an 17 graduate of Westfield High School. And my daughter, Courtney, is a 19 graduate of Westfield High School just last year. The 3 of them, the first 3, have all received degrees. And my daughter, Courtney, is now at the Elms College trying to receive a degree in nursing. My wife, Jill, who has allowed me to do this again for the 3rd time. Thank you, Jill, for all of the support you've given to me and my family. Some of you that don't know me, I'm the vice president of First and Adams Funeral Home here in Westfield. 88 years we've been here. We were on Broad Street, and my great-grandfather started the business in 1932. Very fortunate for me to be in the business. I didn't originally get in the business right out of high school. I took machine shop in this school, and I worked for 5 years at Westfield Gauge. I worked 60 hours a week. This school provided me a great education, and it provided me with a job. Unfortunately, after 5 years working there, I did very well. I was making great money. I was able to get into the family business. Well, that thing came out quick. So I guess I'll leave it at that and try to get back to the rest of what I had to say.
2 minutes is not what it used to be. I wish to thank everyone for being here and those taking the time to watch this at home. My name is Dan Alley. For 6 years, I've had the honor of serving the people of Westfield as your city councilor. I'm a small business owner, graphic designer, and videographer. I was born in Taunton. I grew up in Dayton, Massachusetts. I worked for the Raytheon Company building computers and as a member of the IBEW. After serving 3 years overseas in the Army, I started my own ad agency in Holyoke, working for the Holyoke Mall and Hanush Jewelers and other local and national companies. I was on the management team that brought Papa John's Pizza to Western Mass, opening the first store right here on Franklin Street. I have 2 degrees in graphic arts and multimedia from Springfield Technical Community College. My wife Teresa and I have been married for 30 years. We have 3 children, Christina, Marie, and Joe, and 4 grandchildren. Teresa has worked in the Holyoke and Westfield school systems and served as treasurer for her union, and is involved with the Westfield Women's Club and the Westfield Theater Group. 20 years ago, we chose to move to Westfield for the neighborhood schools, and because Westfield does not feel like a big city, and because of all the wonderful people that we met when we worked on the campaigns of Steve Pierce and Mike Knappich back in the 90s. I ran for office because I'm concerned about the future that we are leaving our children, the quality of their education, and I'm not satisfied with the lack of economic opportunities or the difficulties small businesses and middle class face every day. People have been saying for a long time, why do my property taxes go up every year, and why are the roads in Westfield not getting fixed? We're all paying for it, so why are we not receiving those services? And for too long, the same people have been running the city. I am not satisfied with business-as-usual approach of many politicians and local or others in government. And I'm not satisfied with the conditions our teachers and city employees work in, or the rate of increase in property taxes and lack of road maintenance. We all want common sense solution and deserve a government that spends its time, well, I'll stop, I'll be back to that. I respect that time.
Out of the gate, sure. I thought you were going to call my name and announce.
Mr. Bean. you're next.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Appreciate that. My name is Brent Bean, obviously running for at-large city council. I am the longest-serving city councilor at this time. My wife is a guidance counselor here at the tech school as well as the high school. She's job sharing. Tara Quinn. I have 2 daughters, ages 16 and 18 right now, juniors and seniors at the high school. My daughter they just beat Natick today, which is great, 13-2-2, so they're going to Western Mass playoffs this year, which is great, third year in a row. I was a Westfield High grad in 1991. I grew up by the Prospect Hill School, went to elementary school there, born at Noble, 3rd generation, been here all my life. I serve as a director of government and community relations here at Westfield State University. It's obviously not here, it's the other venue. And listen, Westfield's been everything to me. We always ask that, it's always that tough question on why we're running. I give examples all the time, but more importantly, we have 2, I'll give you an example. 2 commissioners that just retired from this city was Henry Banish and Carl Huffer. Over 30 years apiece, plus years apiece, dedicating their services to the city, and I want to thank them for that. But more importantly, that's why I serve. I want to help keep that dedication going in the city of Westfield. And I want to make Westfield a place for my daughters to grow a family here and stay. That's something that's always been near and dear to my heart, and it's not an easy task by any means. We are a self-sustaining community by having airports, hospitals, colleges, our own Westfield Gas and Electric, and other facilities in town that cost money to run as well. But we're very lucky, and it's a privilege and honor to serve everybody here and everybody on the airways and everybody in town, because I do consider it a small town. Thank you so much.
You're all set. Mr. Emershai?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Matt Emershai, first-term counselor at large. What a difference 2 years makes. I was incredibly nervous up here 2 years ago. Whole lot more relaxed this time. I am a lifelong resident of Westfield, live here with my wife Kelly and our 2 boys, Gage and Blake. Can't forget Simba. Ken pointed that out before, our dog. 2 years ago, I decided to run because the council was presented with a budget that had a 6% tax increase. I was one of the residents in the room who spoke before the council and said, enough's enough, control the spending. Well, once the residents were gone, council went and essentially rubber stamped that budget through, and I said enough's enough. I decided to run. I'm here. The residents had enough confidence in me to place me 4th out of 12 2 years ago. With that being said, taxes over the last 2 years, I have proposed almost $4 million in reductions in the city budget. I have promoted and heavily pushed for transparency, the recording of our meetings, which the current council decided to table until after the election for unknown reasons. Roads, I've been a fierce advocate for getting more money for our roads. And water, I have been to Washington, D.C. to press our elected officials at the White House and members of Congress. I've been to Boston to meet with DEP, EEA, the Governor's Cabinet, Department of Health. I have been to Springfield, to the state building over there to meet with DEP, and locally, overall, I've worked my heart out to try and deliver to the residents. Thank you.
I have charts. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, I'm City Councilor Dave Flaherty, and as you can tell, I'm going to be a little different, all right? Do any of you like participation medals? Only one. I hate them, and participation is not enough for me. I want to accomplish things and achieve things on the City Council, and I believe if you just want a participation medal for showing up to these meetings, you shouldn't bother. You know, we're here to do a job and to work for the citizens of Westfield and the businesses in Westfield, and we need to do the work that's necessary to get the job done. I've been a city councilor for 10 years, and in that time I've accomplished a lot. As Matt mentioned, the reason he's here and a couple of the other councils are here is because of the tax increases. If you look at that chart that's in front of you, the red line is our tax capacity, the blue line is what's called our levy limit from year to year, and the green line is the actual taxes in town. And as you can see, there's a separation between the green and blue line there. That's due to me and Councilor Paul working with other councilors to convince them at that time to separate those things. It means millions of dollars in savings to the taxpayers. I put in countless hours understanding these issues and making efforts to address the problems. I spent a huge amount of time communicating with you. You've probably read my articles, you've seen me online, and you see me very, very active in the community. I'm very concerned about the financial status of the city. I've explained these things for years, and I've been right. There are some people who will claim that I'm wrong, but if you look back at my charts from years ago, you'll see very much the same charts. All right, it's pretty accurate. While listening tonight, I think you should focus on the realities. During the campaigns, people make lots of promises. If I believed everything I got in a postcard in the mail this week, I'd be happy and I wouldn't even be running. Many candidates don't truly understand some of these challenges. There's some math in here that is messy. And it's a hard thing, I understand that. But your radar should go up if you hear claims about fixing roads, guaranteed employee raises, building new things. We just don't have the money. So in closing, here's what I'm hoping tonight. After hearing from all of us, I hope you see your way to voting for me, and I hope you see your way to voting for a team of councilors across the wards and at large that will help us accomplish our goals. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Ms. Harris, whenever you're ready.
No, we're all set. Thank you. My name is Cindy Harris, and I'm running for re-election for Councilor at Large. Thank you to the thousands of voters who voted for me in the past and my new supporters this year. For 6 years, I've been the voice of stop shifting the burden of taxes onto the homeowner. You would be paying way less in taxes had the full council supported my motions over those 6 years. I'll continue to make that motion for the lowest tax rate for homeowners and renters. As a human resource expert, I understand jobs, pay, and what is necessary to run a good business, which is the city. I have a master's degree and I'm a former city assistant assessor, and I understand taxes, budgets, and real estate values. For all our safety, it is most important to support our great police, fire, and first responders so we can focus on other issues. Roads are now being replaced, not just pothole repair, resulting in less vehicle damage. Children of all abilities and important educators need the state to update and increase school funding. All traffic issues need to be examined and resolved. $1 million has been given back to the city recently in refund costs for water treatment, more dollars to come. The arts and sports in our city are positives for the youth and adults and enrich Westfield with good, wholesome entertainment. I might also cite that the mayor has, in the last few days, said that we continue to receive an AA bond rating. It is a strong indication of our stable financial outlook. And they cited the strong management with good financial policies and practices and strong budgetary performance by the Standard & Poor's report. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Mello.
Hi, I'm Kristen Mello. I was born here in Westfield at Noble Hospital. I grew up in Westfield. My mother was the RN up at Westfield State College when it was still a college. My father started the EMT course there and is the director of the Western Hampden County Medical Reserve Corps. I'm here because residents decided that they wanted me to run for office. I've got involved in the Westfield city government accidentally in September of 2016 when I found out about the water contamination that we had. And I went to the mayor in January of 2017. I went to the city council in February of 2017. And at the end of February, we started RAFT, Westfield Residents Advocating for Themselves. We asked for blood testing. The ATSDR just finished in September that blood testing, but only for half of our city, so more work needs to be done. UMass just announced that they've submitted a proposal to have some of those participants from that blood testing tested with MRIs, magnetic resonance imaging, to help see the effects that these contaminants may have had on their internal organs. A lot needs to be fixed, and I think that we're capable of doing it. I think that with science and sound math, that math is correct, by the way, that we can get somewhere. We can change those numbers by creating new economic opportunity in this city, and we can do that in a way that protects our natural resources and our public health. I am very disappointed to have been told that compliant poisonous water is good enough for you. I'd appreciate your vote on November 5th.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Moriarty, go ahead.
Ready? I'd like to thank the Chamber and the Westfield News, where I spent 30 years on your side of the table. I prefer to be out there still, but and during that time as a journalist, I got an education in city government because I covered every board, particularly in education from people like Barbara Sorge and Angie Holmes, Charlie Medeiros, and Lenny Burlingame, how to get stuff done. And it's more than having an agenda. It's having priorities and making you just listening and investigating what's going on, which I'm used to doing. And then you make decisions that are in the best interest of the residents of the city. My priorities, are that our schools prepare our children for college or to enter the workforce. Everybody has a different path. On public safety, police, fire, and I include public works and public safety because they're the ones that have to be out there plowing and sanding the roads so we're not hitting trees. And I love the fact that they've become more proactive. They started using that different colored salt and putting it down before the snow starts to fall. So when the snow does fall, that salt melts at a lower temperature. And it forms a slush layer, so when they plow it, it's easier to get it off our roads. And I'm also here to say that we do need public services. Rubbish, recycling, and I got 15 seconds to finish this up. Well, I'll do it the next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mustrate?
I want to thank the Westfield News and the Westfield Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring this forum for the people that are here tonight. I am a blue-collar, hardworking guy, the average Joe, okay? I'm running for counselor at large. I grew up in Westfield. I attended local schools, graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in biology from Westfield State College, which is Westfield State University now. I come from a working-class background. My mother immigrated from Poland and Germany in 1949 when she was 18 years old. Growing up, I knew the value of a dollar. Both parents worked. My first job was on a tobacco farm. I was a hauler, hauling out the leaves that were placed in a bin to the end of the row. Hard work. We didn't have water bottles back then, but you had a whole big tank of water that was painted red, and everybody got their water from the big tank. I don't know how sanitary it was, but that's the way it was back then. After that, I got a job at Stanley Park. I was a garden associate, worked in a greenhouse. That's kind of where I developed my love of growing plants and stuff, even though I innately had it in me anyways. But it just furthered my love of doing what I like doing, growing plants and so forth. That was very rewarding. I liked working there. It was tremendous success for me. And subsequently, after that, I started my own business, Rudy's Greenhouse. I ran it for a number of years, very successful, very satisfied. So I'm an average guy running for council. I can give common sense ideas, and I ask for your confidence in me to be on the council. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rick Sullivan, and I am the former mayor, 13 and a half years in the city of Westfield, as well as a past city councilor and member of Governor Patrick's cabinet on the issues of energy and environmental affairs. I want to thank Hope and the Westfield News and Kate and the Chamber and Pete and Ken and all the volunteers from Channel 15. Over the course of my career, I think I've built at least a track record and I think a reputation for investments for the future of the community of Westfield, and firmly and foremost in the issues of education, public health and safety, economic development, but on the issues that impact and create the quality of life in our community. And I believe that every election is about the future. What are we going to do to better the community of Westfield and make it a better place to live, work, and raise a family? Back when I was mayor, we invested in education and we built new buildings, but we also invested in our teachers. We invested in police and fire. We created and grew the paramedic service so that today it is actually a center of revenue for the city. But we also grew and built the North Side full capacity fire station. We built, in addition to the wastewater treatment facility, so that the sewer work that you're seeing being done today in your neighborhoods was able to happen because we had built the capacity back then. We built a new airport terminal at Barnes Airport, part of the reason why Gulfstream and 104th is still here in Westfield, contributing greatly to the economy of the city of Westfield. We bought land to protect our water resources. We established the Winding River Land Conservancy. We bought the land that is going to be the finished product of the Columbia Greenway, and we designed and broke ground on the Great River Bridge and the Parkway system in the city of Westfield. And that was not done just because of Rick Sullivan. It was done because there was a collective vision for the future, working with our city councilors, our talented department heads, and the rank and file that serve every single day, and that should be our only agenda moving forward.
Time's up. Thank you very much. Mr. Surprise.
I want to thank the thousands of residents of Westfield I've spoken with at their doors about the issues most important to them. My name is Andrew Surprise. I'm the Ward 3 City Councilor. I'm running for council at large this year. Westfield is a wonderful community filled with a huge volunteer spirit. There's so many good organizations doing good work across the city. I've enjoyed working with many of them together to make our community even better. And I believe working together, we can make this community even better than it is. I first ran for council because I blew out a tire 2 years in a row, and I was sick of having to pay taxes and repair bills for roads that look like a war zone. I think many of you can relate. Talking to residents while knocking on doors and at my many neighborhood meetings I host, I know many people feel the same way. I came to find that none of the $5 million Westfield residents pay in excise taxes are used for roads. That money goes to the general fund and goes to pay other things. Many people ask why I decided to run at large, and there's a few good reasons. First, I have faith that the residents of Westfield see the work I've done on behalf of them creating the Road Stabilization Fund to begin fixing our roads, traveling to Boston and Washington, D.C. to advocate on their behalf with local, state, and federal officials for help cleaning up our water contamination, researching the water issue, talking to scientists and communities that use the carbon filters to discover if they'll work to fully solve the problem, and communicating that information back to residents. Short answer is they don't and they won't. Voting to put a stop to ever-increasing tax rates that hurt working families and seniors living on fixed incomes, and working to develop downtown Westfield, bringing arts and cultural events to our center of our community. Second reason I believe is the City Council needs new ideas and new faces, people willing to lead, to ask hard questions, to make hard decisions. I wanted to make room for another person to run for the Ward 3 seat. I've worked hard to put the people of Westfield before politics. I'm always available to residents, willing to listen, and willing to do the work necessary to make Westfield the best community it can be. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate your vote on Tuesday, November 5th.
You're all set, Mr. Van Heiningen.
Thank you. My name is Matt Van Heiningen, and I'm proud to be one of your candidates for City Council at large. A little background, I'm a Westfield native. I've lived in the city for 33 years. I spent the first 18 years of my life here and the last 15 years here as an adult. I'm running because I enjoy public service, and I want to make a better future for my children, for your children, for all of us, and for our city. I was born at Noble Hospital. I'm a former student in the Westfield Public Schools. I'm a Westfield High grad. I even earned an advanced master's degree in public administration from Westfield State University with a concentration in community development, management, and planning. I put that degree to use in 7 years on a planning board, followed by 4 years on the city council. As a former city councilor, I've proven an independent voice for all of you to air, to weigh the issues and take the difficult votes one way or the other on my own. I'm not beholden to anyone but myself and the residents of the city. I bring experience, skills, commitment, and professionalism that the position of councilor demands and that the residents deserve. I have 20 years of budget and accountability experience, 11 years of public service, and I'm a stakeholder in every sense of the word. As a native, as a parent, as a homeowner, as a taxpayer, I'm committed to my hometown and to its future. I ask for your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to start the first round of questions. The first question goes to candidates Adams, Alley, Bean, and Emershai. So the four of you will answer the first question, 2 minutes per person. The marijuana industry is highly regulated by our state. What is your position on local restrictions on marijuana facilities in Westfield?
First of all, if I can ask, I think the sign up here should be taken down, and you can put it back up when it's his time to speak, but.
Mr. Flaherty, we've had a request for your sign to be moved.
I think when you speak again, you can put it back up, but I don't think it's fair to the rest of the people up here to, thank you.
I think people can remember it.
That's fine, but just put it up when you're supposed to, that's all. So the question, Hope, was the restrictions?
Right. The marijuana industry is highly regulated by the state. What is your position on local restrictions on such facilities in Westfield?
Well, I believe first of all, when I was on the council, we set up, first of all, where these places could be. And I think we put them in the right place. We put them up by the airport, which is probably where they should be. I don't believe they should be downtown. And we had 4 of them, I believe, that we were allowing. And I know there's people that have asked about putting more, but I think before we get one started, we haven't even opened one. Let's not even talk about putting any more up. I'm not for the marijuana thing. I know it's a state thing that we have to allow them in. It's going to bring in some growth. With the opioid epidemic, I'm totally against it. I'm a funeral director that I see one person a day that passes away from this. And I don't agree with the marijuana thing, but if we have to let it in, let's let it in where we're supposed to, and not have any more come into town before we get at least one up and running. That's my feeling on that.
Thank you. Mr. Alley, the same question? I'm happy to repeat any questions as well.
Okay, no, I'm good, thank you. I didn't support the question that was before the Massachusetts voters for a number of reasons. One, it ran to 28 pages, which is a little bit complicated, and I think most people didn't realize that some of the things ran to like edibles, which municipalities can't regulate. Most of us just thought, well, you can grow a few plants in your backyard and that sort of thing. So as far as the businesses coming here, the voters approved it. They have every right. Jim is correct. The council, put some restrictions on placement and that sort of thing. We are allowing 4 businesses, and as they move through the approval process, they have every right to build that business and that sort of thing. I would have liked to see more information out to the people. Some cities, East Long Meadow, I think being one of them, had a referendum, educated the voters, and within the law, we could have actually rescinded it. But that takes a huge effort on the part of the community to do that. So they're here now, and I think we've put things in place to make people responsible, and so we'll not put any more impediments in their way. Thank you.
Yeah, it's one of these things that I understand the voters approved it, and matter of fact, I was for it, and still for it. I am very, very concerned about this Commonwealth not getting their hands around a lot of different things, one being the zoning, one being the rules. They gave local rule to us, but more importantly, just the enforcement of it all. I think the Commonwealth saw the money, and they ran for it. They're still playing catch-up with all their legislation. They're still playing catch-up with how to enforce it, how to the police department, really get their hands dirty about this stuff, really, fining people, are they breaking the law? We don't know. It's federal, it's state. I think it's a complete mess. We have 4, as Councilor Alley said, we have 4 that are able to be here in the city of Westfield. We have 2 cited now, which are still waiting for their state okay. Some councilors here have proposed opening it up even further, having it in our downtown, having it in other zones. I'm completely and utterly against it because we don't even have the 2 that we cited open yet to see where we are. Maybe it has to do with me having, a junior and senior at the high school. I'm seeing a vaping epidemic. I know it's probably not correct to lump them all together, but again, our high schools are they just don't know what to do. And it's the same thing with marijuana. And again, I voted for it, and I would support it because the money is very attractive, but we're way ahead of ourselves to expand it any further. We need to see what our 2 that we just cited opened up, and it would be okay for me to get to the 4, but I'm not looking to go any more than that. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. While this won't probably come as a surprise to many people, I'm going to break ranks here. The residents voted this in. They voted to allow marijuana in Westfield. So that's one thing we need to keep in mind. The other thing being the fact that what we're doing is we're allowing people to buy this in heavily regulated dispensaries. People who smoked marijuana before, they're still smoking marijuana now, whether they're buying it from a legal dispensary or illegally on the street. Where it's coming from isn't stopping people from getting access to it. Now, we have 4 licenses, the 2 of them that were mentioned. HECA, who's getting ready to open, they have their preliminary license. We have Cannabis Connection, who has their new building up. I was the sole vote to vote against eliminating downtown. I believe that we should be able to have an industry like this come in, someone who has the kind of money to revitalize our old buildings downtown that need the money. It would also draw a whole bunch of foot traffic down there and support the other businesses down there. Get people out of the vehicles downtown. The other thing that I want to see changed is right now we have two guidelines. We have retail and we have cultivation, the growers. We don't break it down into labs, the food production or anything like that. And I think really the big thing is we need to look at our neighbors to the north, Northampton, East Hampton. These facilities, even in town, Cannabis Connection, it doesn't stand out like the vape shops or anything. It's not an in-your-face, this is a pot shop. So I see no reason why we couldn't bring something like this in and allow them to bring the investments into Westfield. I think it's foolish that we don't do that because the people are just traveling up there right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question goes to candidates Flaherty, Harris, Mello, and Moriarty. If elected, what are your priorities for the city? You have 2 minutes, please.
I couldn't understand the question.
Could you repeat it?
Sure. What are your priorities for the city as a counselor?
What are your priorities?
Yes.
For the city?
Yes.
All right, different. Try number two.
Come on,
This
Mr.
is my priority.
Flaherty.
Okay,
Mr. Flaherty.
so my priority, is to do what's best for the city over the long term. It takes realistic viewpoints. We haven't seen $1 from marijuana. When I get to the marijuana question, I'll explain that, but we haven't seen $1, yet we've already spent it 5 times. This chart in front of you now is about the tax, levy from various types of businesses. As you can see, the blue line is residential and the orangey color is commercial. And those of you have heard over and over again that, we got to bring more business into town because it's going to save the day and we're going to somehow get more taxes out of it. If you look over the last 15 years, you can see that those orange lines are about the same thickness. So even though we've had, large development in town and restructuring of buildings and pro-lam and stuff like that, it doesn't mean we're going to get more money. It doesn't mean that our problems are going to go away. So I think it takes a realistic understanding of these problems and a good team of people to work together to solve the problems. I don't like rushing things through. I think we should take our time on issues. I think we've made mistakes in the past because we've had things dropped on us and we had to make quick changes or quick votes. I just don't like that at all. So those would be my priorities: openness, clean government. We should have all of our meetings broadcast. There's no reason in the world with today's technology we can't do that. There's no reason we can't record subcommittee meetings. There's no reason, citizens can't get the information before we vote on it so that you can communicate with us. It just doesn't make sense in today's day and age. I think as a city, we have to address the water problem. That's one of the biggest issues right now. As a city council, it's not really our job because we just basically approve the bonding, but we have to support the Water Commission and the Water Department to make sure we solve this the right way. Thank you to the mayor, I know he's out there somewhere, for these lawsuits and for taking action right away on this. It's not like he sat around twiddling his thumbs to solve this. We had to do something, and I think he took the right steps. Going forward, I don't want to sit around on Thursday night singing Kumbaya. I want us to get a job done. So if you hear, discussions about, we want to play nice, that's not my job. My job is to get stuff done and to do the work necessary to make the city better for you and me and everybody else who lives here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I got it. Sorry.
You're going to take me out?
Whenever you're ready. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Thank you. There are many concerns that the cities have, but the first and foremost is supporting our great police, fire, and first responders. The support for them is the most important thing because then we can focus on the other issues in our city. Your wallet, I'm the only one who makes the motion every year for the lowest tax rate for the homeowner. Your vehicles, roads are now being replaced, not just pothole repair, better for our vehicles. Your school children, children of all abilities and important educators need the state to change the outdated method of funding for schools and provide more help. Our city has received $1 million given to the city for refund costs for water treatment. More dollars to come. Much of that is due to the mayor. and Director Billups and the citizens who have spoken up. Your neighborhood, routes for truck traffic and traffic in general needs to be examined by the Traffic Commission. Many arts and sports are very positives for our city. And I am the only woman counselor for the last 6 years which says, women, we can do it, and says to men, your sisters, your mothers, and your wives can do it. Thank you.
If elected, my priority will be to end our PFAS exposure completely and to protect our natural resources and our public health.
Thank you. Mr. Moriarty.
I just want to save time here.
Mr. Moriarty?
Well, I answered my priorities in the first 2 minutes, so
So talk about anything you want.
when I was going through the process of getting signatures to get on the ballot, I went to Stop and Shop before the strike, and during the strike, I went to the Big Y, and people were asking me the same question, priorities. And my answer is that we have to examine how we spend our money. About 86% of the city budget goes to salaries. So you got 14% to deliver services and goods, patching roads, buying copy paper, all that good stuff. I don't know how that gets done on 16%. But one of the things that I was curious about, my wife was in the back of the room and I were just the two of us in the house. Well, I fill my recycling up every 2 weeks. The rubbish is a third full every week, and some weeks I don't put it down. I'm not admitting that. And maybe there could be some way of changing the schedules so that they coincide. And I know that might be difficult for younger families who have children still in diapers, because you don't want those diapers outside your door in August for 2 weeks. But it's something to consider. Maybe there's a way to do it and save wear and tear in the trucks, be able to do more with less. And I timed that perfectly.
Thank you. Our third question is for candidates Musgrave, Sullivan, Surprise, and Van Heiningen. And this is a two-parter. Westfield has the 5th highest commercial tax rate in the Commonwealth. As we approach the tax levy limit, what is your position on the split tax rate, and how would you promote business development in the city?
What was the end of it? Promote what?
Business development.
Okay. The business development, I believe, lies with the small business in Westfield. We want to keep dollars local in Westfield. Of course, you can always attract large businesses here also. And again, you want to attract the right businesses here. I consider myself an environmentalist. We have to look at any large business that comes into Westfield, the environmental impact that it has on our air, water, and land. You have to scrutinize and see what's there. They can dangle that carrot in front of the city about the money that they would give, but environmentally, going forward in the 21st century, the quality of life looms large in Westfield, and it's already been seen on the north side with the water problem and the truck problem there, that the trucking outfit that got permitted to come into town. Many of the residents on the north side are opposing that. So it's kind of a balance with the tax rate. You want to keep taxes low as much as you can. Property taxes especially, I've been going door to door, and it's the number one issue with the people. Taxes are too high. They want us to lower the taxes, keep the tax rate down. So you got to do a little balancing act, but I believe if you encourage local businesses, you will keep taxes Lowell, and you'll keep the money in Westfield so they can spend it here. I'm a great proponent of small business. Anything that we can do to help them, I'm all for it. That's the way to go with the rate tax question.
So with regards to the split tax rate, I obviously have a history, and I do think that there's a balance between residential and commercial and industrial, and I have to say Councilor Harris is correct. She is the only one over the course of her tenure that has always voted for the lowest residential tax rate. But I do think that there's a balance, because you can't put the entire burden over onto the commercial and industrial sector, because they provide jobs, they provide more taxes than the residents. They also are the ones that are contributing to the charities and the other good works that happen here in the city of Westfield. So there is a balance there, and I've always been for that balance. In terms of business development, I think that there's a lot of opportunities. One of the reasons that businesses, let me take it back. When part of your question said the high value or the high tax rate. The rate is really pretty inconsequential to business. What they care about, just like the residents that has been talked about, they care about their tax bill. And that's a two-pronged. Nobody sits there and says my valuation's too high. They don't sit there and say their rate's too high. They say my bill is too high. And if you look at our bills, we're smack dab in the middle of the Commonwealth. We are competitive with our rates. We do not lose any businesses because of our tax rate. But I do think the city has some opportunities within it. On business development, you've got the what was the Twist Street landfill number 2 to be able to be developed. That's an asset that there is not a lot of fully developed property that is permitted and ready to go, shovel ready. The city has done a very good job in getting grants and getting that ready. That is a real asset that the city can leverage. Downtown, you can creatively look at the 108 program and put our community development dollars together so that we can provide incentives for small businesses such as restaurants to be able to open up. And we have been working at the Economic Development Council with some state legislation to provide some incentives for individuals to develop their downtown buildings. All of those things, when put together, can be a great strategy for growth.
Regarding taxes, obviously taxes are too high. The new auditor has said that we're 3 to 5 years out from hitting the tax levy ceiling. If you don't know what the levy ceiling is, it's the valuation of 2.5% of the valuation of all the property in town. Once we hit that ceiling, we can't raise taxes to generate revenue anymore, aside from doing an override on the ballot so that people can vote for a specific project like a new school. That means that we either go back and make layoffs and cuts or hiring freezes, or we have brownouts on certain facilities like Holyoke does, or it's a situation like Holyoke, Pittsfield, and Springfield have had where, they've had to make the layoffs or the state has come in and installed the control board and done it for them. One thing we have to remember is people, working families living on fixed incomes, seniors living on fixed incomes, struggle to pay these bills. There's a huge gap between the amount tax has gone up in the last 9 years, 25%, and the amount the COLAs have gone up for senior citizens, 13%. So it's very difficult when the taxes are outpacing the actual revenue that people are making, the money people are bringing home. In regards to small business development, I've worked to try to drive pedestrian traffic through Artworks Westfield. That's bringing Arts and Cultural District to downtown Westfield. That's the next thing on the agenda that I would hope to pass next year. I'm really a big fan of what Mayor Sullivan did with bringing Myers Information Systems to downtown Westfield from downtown Northampton. I'm fine with providing TIFs, tax increment financing, which is a tax break over a certain period of time for small businesses, not so much for the larger ones. Then maintaining infrastructure is another important thing to drive business development. And when we have the 5th highest commercial property tax in the state, we don't maintain our infrastructure. Businesses see that and they don't want to come here because they wonder how high the taxes will actually go. And then redoing the zoning on the north side to get away from straight industrial to more environmentally friendly and technology-oriented businesses would, I think, be a benefit not only for businesses but also protecting the aquifer.
So I wouldn't necessarily adjust the tax rate. I'm not convinced that the tax rate is what's discouraging businesses from locating here. In fact, I think the bigger problem is the face that we're putting or rather providing our city when you look at how the council in some ways has conducted itself over the past 2 years. I think what we really need to look at is professionalizing the process that these companies go to when they're siting here. Maybe, now, I would separate that from streamlining the process too. I think there's a way we could do it where we're being more business friendly, not cutting corners, of course, looking at the environmental concerns as applicable, but reviewing business locations and siting in a way that's more business friendly, I think, would go a long way to making our city a more attractive one for business to locate in. But on the professionalization that I spoke to, I think we really need to look at the face we've been giving ourselves over the past 2 years. It's to some extent it's been embarrassing as a resident to see that this is what businesses are looking at if they're watching these meetings. Yes, we should look at incentives. But I think we should think about limited timeframes for those incentives. I think we should look at the downtown. And perhaps even provide incentives for businesses locating in the downtown, like the example that was cited already. I think there's more that can happen like that. I think even East Main Street, I think most of us would agree is underutilized, and there could perhaps be incentives for retail establishments to be located there as well. And on the industrial side of things, I think we need to tread lightly there, given truck traffic and environmental implications, but I think it can be done in a way that is a success for us as well. Thank you.
How you doing, Kate?
Technical difficulty there.
There's only 3 buttons.
It's like a kaleidoscope. Wow.
All right. It's a tough crowd. Next, we're going to go back to question 1 for our next group of counselors, which is candidates Flaherty, Harris, Mello, and Moriarty. The marijuana industry is highly regulated by the state. What is your position on local restrictions on marijuana facilities? Mr. Flaherty, you can begin.
Yep, thank you. And I don't have a chart for this because it would show 0 all across the bottom. All right. I really could care less what people do in their own homes. I'm kind of libertarian when it comes to who you sleep with and what you take in your home and what you eat. If you want to eat Cheetos and you want to drink soda, that's fine with me. If you want to smoke something you can grow in your backyard, that's perfectly fine with me. I didn't vote for it for recreational drugs. I don't really care, like I said, but I didn't vote for it. As far as expanding it, I think we have to have the places that are already established and licensed show what they can do before we expand it. I don't really have a problem with it if they want to move the zone later on, but I do have a problem with trying to do it before we've seen any real results. I also think it's grossly unfair to give a benefit to a new person coming in to get one of those last 2 licenses when the first 2 guys have spent millions of dollars building out their facilities in the areas that we told them they had to be in. So I think that is a unfair market change controlled by the city if we were to do that. The reason I don't support recreational marijuana is I've been involved with Scouts for over 15 years. I have 2 young sons. I see what goes on. I don't see it the way Jimmy sees it, of course, but I personally know people who have been addicted to many bad things and have many bad consequences. And I can't say to the kids on Monday night, don't take recreational drugs and don't drink, and then on Thursday night, vote for recreational marijuana in Westfield. I just can't. I think any of you that are parents or teachers could understand that. So my position is no for recreational from my standpoint. If you want to grow it in your backyard and smoke it in your house and don't tell anybody, I could care less. But for me to say yes to recreational drugs would just send the wrong signal, and it's vehemently opposed to things that I've been saying for the last 15 or 20 years. So just say no, just say no, just say no. I know that didn't work in the past, but please, just say no. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Harris, same question.
Thank you. Citizens voted for this. I did not vote for it personally. However, I will always adhere to the law. The law says that this is allowed. I do not believe that we need to expand it. I do agree with Councilor Flaherty that we need to see what happens with the first ones that we have already approved. And it is giving an unfair advantage to businesses that come in after that before we see what's happening. And that's I'm known as very succinct answers, and that's my very succinct answer.
Thank you. Ms. Mello.
Okay, so I think it's a little bit tricky to talk about the location of marijuana establishments when you have establishments selling alcohol all over the place. So I'll start there. I also think that there are many communities that have been down this road before and that we're not taking full advantage of their experience. So if it were up to me, my choice would be to send teams of people, teams of counselors out in order to see what other communities have done, work that with the law department and what the laws are in the state of Massachusetts, have everybody in a different camp of feeling, write up their best proposal, and then have a referendum and let the voters decide.
Thank you. Mr. Moriarty.
Could you repeat the
I
question?
sure can. The marijuana industry is highly regulated by the state. What is your position on local restrictions?
Could you talk to me? You're bouncing, and I got a bad ear.
I can try. Is this better if I'm closer?
No, just yell at me.
Yell at you, okay.
You used to.
It's the echo, Hope.
What's your position on local restrictions to marijuana facilities?
Okay.
Okay.
That's what zoning's about. You got community development, you have a planning department, you have a planning board, and you have a city council. So you can restrict the locations of these facilities. You can't make it so restrictive that they can't come at all, because then the state will overthrow that. But, I mean, we do that for alcohol. You can't have certain types of business near churches or schools or preschools. And so I don't see an issue with using the system that exists within the city to set some parameters on the industry. And that's my answer.
Thank you. The next question goes to candidates Musstrate, Sullivan, Surprise, and Van Heiningen. And it is, if elected, what are your priorities for the city?
Priorities?
Yes. Sorry, is this echo really bad in here?
Okay. Or
Your top priority,
priority,
if
okay.
elected.
I believe what I consider a top priority would be the roads. Everybody uses roads. You can't go anywhere without roads. Schools, buses, police, fire, the everyday people, commuters in and out of the city for work. We need better roads that last. Okay, we've been doing the last 40 or 50 years, we've been repairing the roads the same way, just covering them up, chewing them up, then cover them up, chewing them up, then cover them up. And in 2 or 3 years, they're already the same way, and then you got potholes involved in it. So I think we should, again, I'm an environmentalist. I want to go into the 21st century with new ideas. I think we should use, and you can see it online, there's recycled material that countries are using, Scandinavia, England. They're mixing recycled plastic, concrete aggregate. They're mixing into the asphalt on roads that are in cold weather countries, and they're lasting 2 to 3 times longer. I think we have to change the way we do the roads. And that also bears down in what we use for underneath, for the base. That would be a top priority in Westfield. Change the way we're doing it and go into the future with roads that last and don't fail. And everybody's going to be happy. You won't have potholes. Maybe once every 10 years, maybe. So that's my priority for Westfield. Roads that are built to last.
Thanks. So just a quick, I've been asked to remind the candidates to speak into the microphone, mostly for recording purposes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'm going to try to tie 2 issues together and go back to, I think, the importance of these debates and these elections is the future. And I think part of the future is that we do need to grow the city in terms of the revenues that are coming in by attracting new businesses and having new growth so that all the numbers that are being discussed here look better going into the future. And businesses are not coming because of the tax bill or the tax rate. but they are not coming to the region and to the city because they can't find the talent, they can't find the workforce, they can't retain the workforce, they can't develop the workforce. We have a great opportunity here in the city with this building here at Westfield Academy, but also Westfield High School. If we make the investment into education, into our teachers, and quite frankly, into our students, and I fully support the superintendent's move to create career pathways at Westfield High School in the disciplines of engineering, public safety, in which I'm actually, myself and my son serve on in the advisory board, as well as medical and hospitality, because if we can train the students and educate the students for the jobs out there for tomorrow, that is the talent that businesses are looking for, and they will come. They will come where the talent is, and we've got a great opportunity. We've got great resources. We have great educational leaders. We have great teachers in the classrooms that need to be supported, and that is an investment that we should be making. And then if you leverage that with the programs and the offerings up at Westfield State University, we have got a nucleus right here in this community that we can leverage for smart growth for the future, which will be bringing in additional dollars and revenues, which will allow that litany of projects that I mentioned in the opening to occur going out into the future. Those are the investments we need to make. That's my priority.
My first priority would be to deal with the PFAS water contamination. I was just a few days ago at UMass Amherst visiting School of Environmental Engineering, and Rep. Vilas was there, and he asked the scientists there, they're all doctors, they're all studying experts in PFAS, if they lived in Westfield, would they prefer an alternate water source or would they use GAC? And every one of them said they would go first with an alternate water source. So my priority is to get an alternate water source for Westfield, whether that's drilling new wells outside the contamination zone or whether that is tapping into a neighboring community like Holyoke or Springfield, or a combination of both, which I think is what we're going to have to do. Secondly, roads. Chapter 90 funding needs to be increased. That's a state thing. We have to advocate at the state level. Successfully created the Road Stabilization Fund. Half the council was fought against creating that, and then when election time rolled around, 12 or 13 voted for it. That will dedicate, hopefully, the meals and hotels taxes, which is about $1 million more per year into our roads. We need to invest $5 million per year over 15 years, or $75 million, to get our roads in decent repair. And I also want to use 1% of the general fund going forward to invest in roads, and then ask G&E to contribute as well. Taxes. It's a matter of getting the city to get a handle on its fiscal spending. I'd like to move to zero-based budgeting. I proposed 9 charter changes to change the budget process. Zero-based budgeting is based on necessity, not on what your previous budget was year to year. So you go through line by line and you make those decisions every single year. And I'd like to see a third of the departments do that every third year. And lastly, putting priority projects first. But I would also note that there are 300 separate PFASs in the AFFF foam. We only test for 24. State only regulates 5. How safe do you feel?
So my 3 priorities are economic development, our schools, and our infrastructure. But I'm going to start with our infrastructure. And by infrastructure, I mean our roads, but I also mean our water. And I was actually at the same workshop Councilor Surprise was at, and that he just referred to. And interestingly, you didn't tag me on Facebook, but I was there.
Friends.
But those same experts that pointed out that they would seek an alternate water source also pointed out the cost concerns to an alternate water source. And so I think that's just worth noting. And I think if we're going to look at alternates scenarios, we need to have all the data in front of us. And I think to base it on, where there are substantial data gaps, as was pointed out by those same experts throughout the workshop and in the agenda, I just thought it was fair to point that out. So roads also are, of course, deserving. I think we've made incredible progress in our roads over the past few years, through, I think, in part due to the work of the Finance Committee and former Councilor Paul and his work in tandem with bonding and the the G&E to get infrastructure in place. I'm sorry, not the G&E, the DPW to get sewers in place and do roads at the same time. I think our schools, I was a strong proponent of schools in the 4 years I served on council. I think when you're looking at it from a standpoint of the future of our community, I think you've got to look at not just economic development, but you've got to look at investing in our infrastructure and our schools. If we don't have strong schools, we're not going to be an attractive community for folks to live and locate their businesses in. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is for candidates Adams, Alley, Bean, and Emershai. Westfield has the 5th highest commercial tax rate in the Commonwealth. As we approach the tax levy limit, what is your position on the split tax rate, and how would you promote business development in the city?
Yeah, well, I was pretty, when I've served for 10 years on this council, and I was always kind of the voice of the businesses in town. You know, they always kind of leaned to me because my business has been here for 88 years. The split tax rate, I don't think I would agree with the split tax rate. I think the businesses, although I pay both, I pay a lot of money for both. So I still think the businesses are able to afford a little bit more than the residents, and we don't need to put the burden on them. But we need to bring the business into town. I mean, a lot of people don't understand what the businesses do for the town. I know how many thousands of dollars I give back to the city. And I think there are several businesses. What would you do without a Dave Amonte or advanced manufacturing? People don't see the extra they do. They pay a ton of taxes. They spend a whole bunch of money in town. They employ hundreds of people that are able to live here and pay taxes and to pay their mortgages. There's so much advantage of having the business in town. I've always been in favor of giving TIFs. I had to fight for Pro Lamina when we gave them a TIF, and I couldn't believe that there were so many other counselors opposed to that. There's 300 people there that are putting their kids to school, that are going to the grocery store, that are spending so much money in town. And I have a lot of people who are against bringing businesses into town. You know, when I said on the council, I'm for every one of them. Whatever we can do, bring them in. I don't think we need to do a split tax rate. I don't think that's the answer. But provide everything we can. We have the services to provide them. And Councilor Van Hannigan said it right. One of the biggest complaints when I sat was how much what it took for every business to go through the red tape to come into town. A lot of that scared them away. So we need to streamline that, bring them in, because there are so many more benefits that people really don't see. I understand it, but businesses have done so many things for the town. I'm not for the split tax rate. I'll pay my extra. I'm a business. I'll pay the extra. I have no problem with that, but you can't burden that with the residents the way I look at it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the split tax rate is not really the answer. I mean, you've got the tax rate itself, and then the assessed value, as well as the spending and the new growth and that sort of thing. Perhaps Westfield should think about having the assessor as an elected position, so that you have an assessor that's somewhat accountable to the people, like Checkby does. Massachusetts is a high cost of business state and a high cost of living state, even here in Western Massachusetts. And I agree with Jim Adams here that we supported TIF and incentives, either offered by the federal government and the state government, to help businesses get on their feet, okay? I led the fight to dissolve the Business Improvement District. That was hurting small businesses, and also trying to change the rules after the effect. You know, I've managed different businesses. I've created jobs. I've had to make a payroll. You know, the state doesn't help when they mandate, increases in minimum wage. You know, a minimum wage was always meant to be an entry-level job where people gained experience and that sort of thing. I think the politicians should worry about their own pay raises. They seem to do a good job with that and leave the rest of us alone. I helped to defeat Complete Streets, which added cost. It not only took power away from local officials, but it also added cost to every public and private project, okay? And with the help of councilors, we were able to get that done. and I certainly appreciate their support on that sort of thing. So we have to do what we can to try to grow business and that sort of thing, but we have to control spending, because in some regards, we can't even grow our way out of this problem, okay? Thank you.
Can you repeat it?
Sure. Westfield has the 5th highest commercial tax rate in the Commonwealth. As we approach the tax levy limit, what is your position on the split tax rate, and how would you promote business development in the city?
Right out of the gate, I mean, the split tax rate, for us, it's okay. I think initially when you get into the single tax rate, it's going to be too big of a burden on the residents, and we just can't get there at this given time. As far as business in attracting business, and keep this in mind, do some research. This council who sits here now it's analysis by paralysis, or paralysis by analysis. No one wants to make a decision. And there's a lot of rhetoric going around. We need to be business friendly, and the way we treat individuals who come in front of this council is outrageous. Watch the meetings, pay attention to what we're actually supposed to be voting on and what gets seeped into the argument. We have a lot of land out there that's undeveloped. A lot of it's on the north side. We've got to be mindful of that for obvious reasons. I don't have to explain myself there. But when we have a hospital, airport, the stuff I said at the beginning of my speech about what Westfield is, we should be packaging those up. We should be putting boots on the ground, attracting business, not waiting for the truck businesses to come to us, because that's what we're known for. We should be going out and making people want to come to us. The problem is that there's people on this council that cut the budget to allow some of those boots to be on the ground. No one wants to spend the money. And to make money, you have to spend it. We have a situation, Joe Mitchell's position is still unfilled. It was 6 months. Some councilors cut that money again. And they changed the term limit of that councilor because it was coinciding with the mayor. Who is going to take a job for 3 to 6 months? Who? Not anybody worth a salt, I'll tell you that. So when Dan Moriarty talks about the community development directors, and there's more people then than there were now. And we have P.J. Miller run around with his head cut off because there's not boots on the ground. We can be such an attractive city, and I'm just saying, do your research before you vote on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question.
Okay, thank you. So 5th highest commercial tax rate, split rate. At this point, there's no conceivable way where we could go to a single rate commercial residential. The shift is too great, and the burden that would place on residents, it would price the elderly and new families starting out of the city. They simply couldn't afford to live here. Now, we have had the discussions over last year. I haven't sat in on another one this year yet, but the discussion last year was how much were we going to shift to who? The big issue we need to focus on is controlling that spending, because that steers that conversation. Instead of passing a budget that has 2%, 4%, 6% tax increases built in, and then we sit there and say, oh, well, we don't want to dump that on residents, so we'll dump it on the businesses, or the businesses come in and say, we can't pay this, so you need to dump it on the residents. We need to be collectively mindful of that, and we need to control the spending overall for everyone. As far as growth in the city, I think the big thing for us is our zoning. The city's master plan was done back in the 60s. We had the city's 300th anniversary celebration after the city had their most recent master plan designed. It's outdated. A lot has changed in almost 60 years in the city, and I think we really need to get back to taking a look at redoing a master plan for the city and adjusting the zoning and what types of businesses should go where and residential. And overall, I think that would really smooth things out for residents and businesses looking to come in. It would promote growth of certain types of businesses that we're looking for, and it would ease the minds of residents already in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm mixing up a little here. The next question's for candidates Mustrate, Sullivan, Surprise, and Van Heinigen. The marijuana industry is highly regulated by the state. What is your position on local restrictions to these facilities in Westfield?
Yeah, marijuana, right?
Yeah. So you,
What's your position on local restrictions for marijuana?
okay, so you're skipping the middle four.
I am.
Okay.
I'm keeping you on your toes.
Okay, all right. Local restrictions on marijuana facilities. Already have state regulations. Local facilities, especially pertaining to downtown, have to be looked at. It's a touchy thing there because you have a lot of business downtown, shops and whatnot, and it would be nice to have some marijuana shops downtown, but again, you can't have them, I wouldn't believe, within 500 feet of a school. It's good to have the revenue to come down, to have in Westfield as, you know, as tax revenue. But I think we could do it on a limited basis. Growth facilities, of course, that would have to be outside of town. They are something that can have restrictions in and of itself, how the stuff is transported in and out of there, because there's, in growing the marijuana, there's a smell involved, and it's something that can be very negative if you're in the environment, if it's anywhere near houses and stuff. So I believe that marijuana in and of itself, it's sort of a gray area as far as how it can be, you know, policed, the community policing people. I've talked with at least one officer on my campaign, and he says it's sort of a gray area. If an individual is caught with marijuana, because federally it's against the law, but state it's allowed, he can be arrested, held overnight or whatever, but then let go until he's arrested again. So there is somewhat of a gray area or leeway, but local restrictions on marijuana have to be looked at very carefully. We do want the revenue, but again, you don't want it to
Time
be
is
any
up.
kind of a negative aspect of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of marijuana, from a state perspective, I think everybody generally agrees that Massachusetts is the most highly regulated industry in the country when it comes to marijuana, and I do have faith in the Attorney General and the Cannabis Control Commission to rigorously enforce the facilities themselves. In terms of, and I do think that the city did a good job in terms of the zoning on where the facilities could be located, and it has been discussed a number of times. There are two. I do believe that, you know, both of those plus the other two need to get up and running before we go and look to make some changes. I would be agreeable to certainly having those discussions about looking to change that zoning, although I think we do have to be extremely sensitive if we start talking about the downtown overlay district, because we also have to remember that one of the things we're trying to do is bring residents to live there, and they're entitled to some quiet enjoyment as well. So it isn't just the small businesses that are in the downtown area. We have to be respectful of the fact that we're encouraging people to move and to live into the downtown as well. And I was struck during the Ward 2 debate the other evening that Ward 2 Councilor Figge had indicated that, you know, many of the residents that live in particularly the Ward 2 area are not in favor of expanding it into the overlay district. So I would be predisposed to not look to expand it into the overlay district in the downtown, but I'm certainly open to the discussion. But I think you definitely need to get the four that are potentially able to be permitted up and running and see how it works before you make those decisions.
Zoning is an issue with the marijuana. I'm going to be very brief on it. There are different types of facilities. It's not just selling. It's not just growing. And there's also lab testing. There's packaging. And right now, the zoning restricts it to the industrial part of the city. There's about 8 parcels which could actually they could actually locate a facility on. Putting a retail shop downtown would not be the worst thing in the world. It would bring pedestrian traffic. It's something we're looking at. It's something that really does need to change, because right now we're losing business out to Northampton, East Hampton, and West Springfield and Agawam are now talking about doing this. So we need $5 million a year to put into our roads. We are losing a revenue source by not doing this. People voted for it. It's a legal business in Massachusetts. We have to treat the businesses the same. We can't say you're different than a liquor store because you're not. It's just retail. They're not consumption on premises. I want to move back to the water issue. Right now, we have the option of tapping in Holyoke's Thai Carmody Reservoir. That actually has a sustained availability of 14 million gallons per day. They only use 4.8. They'd offer to sell us 2 million gallons per day, and they have. The water director has, for $365,000 per year. To change out the carbon on the carbon filters will be $640,000 per year. We also have the option, and there's also 2 water mains that run from Holyoke into Westfield, by the way, from that reservoir. We also have the option of getting water from Springfield. When Springfield created the Little River watershed, the legislature actually created an act of the legislature that requires them to sell water to us at an equal amount of our population at the rate that we pay at the time that we ask for the water. They're required by law, by the act of the legislature, to sell us the water. So we have that option as well. We do need pumps in order to get that water to the north side, but that's another story. And I'm open to either Springfield or Holyoke and the new well outside the contamination zone, but it has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed now.
To answer the marijuana question, you know, it's unfortunate that it rolled out the way that it did here in Massachusetts, but it's here, and it's regulated heavily at the state level. I will say that as a member of the planning board, I was involved in convening the discussions to help get those regulations, those local regulations and zoning regulations off the ground and developed. I would be opposed to locating marijuana establishments in our downtown, I think, for the reasons that have been pointed out pertaining to the schools that are located in our downtown district. So I would be opposed to that. I think, I do feel that the market could reach a saturation point where, you know, there's only so many businesses to go around, you know, in my mind, and so I'm not convinced that, you know, we should just open the floodgates and, you know, allow as many as we can for the revenue's sake. I don't think that's the case. But again, it is unfortunate it rolled out the way that it did. State regulations are heavily involved. So that's it.
Thank you. We're winding down. 2 more. And our next question goes to candidates Adams, Alley, Bean, and Emershai. If elected, what are your priorities?
Yeah, thank you. I can kind of get back to my opening statement. Well, I'll tell you what the priorities are for me, or the priorities when I was here. I think we have to get creative, first of all. When I sat here a few years ago, I spent 3 years with the Fish and Game getting a restriction on the Montgomery Reservoir property. That brought in $1 million to the city. 3 years I spent with the town of Montgomery, Fish and Game, city officials in Westfield, and brought in $1 million. Not taxpayer money. That came from the state of Massachusetts that benefited the city. I also worked with Chief Camerata and came up with an idea of the towing contract. And I would bet you that's over $1 million that is brought into the city, not at taxpayers' shoulders. That's what we have to do. We have to have a vision. I had a vision also to buy some property on Main Street. Unfortunately, it fell through because there were a couple people that had other ideas. But guess what that would have done? Our school would have been built, and we'd have a whole bunch of ball fields down there. Guess what we're short on here in Westfield? A school and quality ball fields. So I think I have a vision. I think I know where we need to go. I think we need to expand on it. I don't consider myself a politician. That's kind of why I've got out and are coming back again, because I just want to help the city. I don't like what's going on with the city council. Everybody's fighting. Some of these guys don't like the mayor, so they're going to stop everything the mayor wants to do. I've gotten along with every single mayor that sat there and worked with every single councilor to try to make things happen, and that's what I would continue to do if I get elected.
We all want good schools and roads safe neighborhoods, clean air and water, and deserve a government that spends our tax dollars wisely and on the intended purpose. We deserve a government that listens to us, works together to get things done, with all of our best interests in mind as a community. My priorities would be controlling spending, transparency, and obviously the use of tax dollars for their intended purpose. Under controlling spending, this year the mayor asked the departments to level fund the budget. It only went up by $3.7 million. If we raise taxes to the max, that's 2.5%, that'd only bring in about $1.7 million. So you do the math. 3 years of those tax increases will hit the levy ceiling, a point at which we can't raise taxes anymore except for specific items. Using money for its intended purpose. Example for the highway budget. We pay $5 million in vehicle excise tax every year. We have $1.2 million by the state in Chapter 90 money. Add to that water, sewer, and stormwater money that can work for drainage issues before the road's constructed. We know we need to spend $7 million over the next 15 years to rebuild these roads. I don't see $7 million. We've made some inroads in the past, but that's because of pressure of people like you and me. So I think that we need to work together on these things. I think we as a community need to prioritize. Let's put our money in the intended buckets and then see where the shortfalls lay and deal with those issues. When things end up in the general fund, just like with the state, we got a $43 billion budget. The state only gives us $200 million. In 2013, the last governor that we had actually cut $100 million out of that budget because he didn't get a $1 billion tax increase even when the state had a $1 billion surplus that year. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess there's a couple of things. Businesses has always been a number one priority for me, but obviously we talked about it briefly, so you know where I stand on that. The other thing is what we're seeing now, and to piggyback on what soon-to-be Councilor Adams said, is that the constant devaluing, if I can put it that way, devaluing of city employees in Westfield in general. Our school department right now, and I'll get to the teachers, for me, when I ran for mayor back in 07 for the 08 thing, that was one of the number one issues out there is to build a high school. We're at 11 years later, and we still haven't seen anything. So when counselors stand up there and bang the drum about things costing money, and we need to cut the budget, and they constantly devalue the city employees because we're giving them a 1% raise, I have a problem with that. If you ever watch the teacher, she doesn't just sit there, or he doesn't just sit there and teach. He's constantly, or she's constantly being a father, a mother, a disciplinarian. They take a slew of issues up, pulling vape pens out of kids' mouths, sending them down. You know, it's constant. So it's not simply just standing in front of a classroom anymore. I will say that infrastructure is probably, if I didn't say it, so I would say a high school and building a new high school. That's got to happen soon. The other piece is other infrastructure. We have seen, I've been around a long time, and I couldn't be happier with our ward counselors right now. I've seen they're fierce supporters of this, and you can drive around this town right now and look around. I'm tired of driving through cones. I'm tired of getting directed by police officers. Maybe I'm the only one seeing it, but it's the case. It's what's happening out there right now. We are doing a really good job, so I want to keep that momentum going. Councilor Babinski, Councilor Figge, Councilor Oniski, Councilor Burns. We have a race right now in 5, but with the expert of Councilor Beltrandi, we're seeing some unbelievable
Time's up,
things.
Counselor. Thank you. Counselor Amershad.
Thank you. Priorities. First would be taxes. City payroll in the last 3 years has gone up 17.1%. The payroll has gone from 78 million to 90.7. So we have a situation where it's not about giving employees 1%. It's a matter of the overall payroll and where we're spending that money and who we're giving it to. At budget time, it was detailed, there was a whole lot of people that were receiving more than 1%. There was a lot of 10, 15s, 20, even some higher than that. So I want to continue to focus on controlling the excess spending and rein in the taxes. We've been running about $5 million a year in free cash. That's money that was budgeted for and not spent that residents were taxed on. Transparency, I do want to continue pushing on recording of meetings and allow residents the access to the meetings that they deserve. Roads, want to continue to push for the Road Stabilization Fund to receive the dedicated monies, the meals and hotel tax, the way it was. The water, continue to fight to either obtain Cabot Road site, ideally, or Ty Carmody Reservoir in Holyoke. Currently, the city has ignored Cabot Road because they're pushing to put an industrial park there, which that's the last place in the city that we have for clean water on the north side of the city. Schools, get a new school built. We have, and get Cross Street Park restored. We have a $7 million pile of dirt that's now taken down at this point. What a mess. And ultimately, we have labor contracts in front of us for the city employees and being able to fulfill our obligations to the city employees, because what's in front of us simply isn't feasible and there's no way to fulfill the obligation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know, I drone out sometimes.
Our last question is for candidates Flaherty, Harris, Mello, and Moriarty. As we approach the tax levy limit, what is your position on the split tax rate? And how would you promote business development?
I have a graph for that.
And I couldn't hear your entire question.
Okay. The tax levy limit question. As you can see, there's 3 lines on there, the red, blue, and green. The red line is a calculation. It's 2.5% of the assessed property values of everything in town. It basically floats on the market value. There's absolutely nothing anybody at this table can do about that red line. It's all about market value. As you can see, it goes down a little bit, all right? It happens to be a little bit higher than on this because this graph was produced in June. We just got some new evaluations, so the red tail over there is going to go up a little bit. However, the blue line is our limit on an annual basis, year over year. That grows at 2.5% plus new growth. Our new growth historically has been somewhere in the $800 to $1.2 million range. All right? The mix of property values I showed you before showed that commercial values, even though we have new projects, doesn't necessarily mean we bring in new money, because other things depreciate as things come online. For those of you who don't do the calculations, for every $1 million in new spending, we need $40 million in new property values. The largest property in town right now is the grocery warehouse. It's $27 million taxable value. So we need 1.5 of those things every year just to stay even with some of the spending plans you've heard. We need $5 million a year for new roads. The current payroll contracts that we're looking at are almost $5 million a year. We owe $15 million a year that we're not paying to employees and benefits. Someday we have to start paying that, right? The bond for the new school, it's going to cost us $1 million to $1.5 million a year. Where's all this money going to come from? And though, you think it's only $1 million. Well, $1 million is CNS wholesale every single year for going forward. I mean, how realistic do you think that plan is? On this chart here, the red line, like I said, is something we can't control. For those of you who drive cars, let me just tell you how the collision is going to work here. The blue line grows at 2.5% plus 37 cents per thousand because it's commercial. If we had a new $30 million building, it'd go 37 per thousand. The red line only moves at $25 per thousand. Pretty soon, no matter what that gap is, by bringing a new business in, the blue line is going to catch the red line. And that's going to be a big problem because that's the maximum we can tax.
Time's up, Councilman.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll read it for you
Would you
again.
be
Yes, Ms. Harris, what is your position on the split tax rate, and how would you like to promote
On the
business
split
development?
tax rate, thank you very much. Split tax rate has been in Westfield for over 30 years. I've been a strong proponent of continuing that on. It's divided into the residential and tenants and the commercial and industrial. Commercial and industrial includes the multi-billionaire banks, the multi-billionaire international oil companies, General Dynamics, international billionaire company, and East Main Street Shops, another national billionaire company. It does unfortunately include small businesses, which I have been a proponent of and had recommended for years and years that we have a separate tax system for the small businesses, which has gained no traction at all. I do not think that the residents should have the taxes shifted onto them, which is what I have run on for 6 years. Don't shift the taxes on to the homeowners. Boston Globe did a huge article saying that none of these companies are leaving Westfield, and why? They're not leaving because we provide wonderful amenities to them. The Turnpike, gas and electric company, educated workers, and very low crime rate, great police, great fire. So that none of these big companies are leaving Westfield because of the tax rate. So I am in total support of being the advocate for the homeowner. Thank you.
So I think that Dave Flaherty is correct about his numbers in his graph. And I also think that Councilor Harris is correct that the residents cannot bear any more than they are already bearing, and neither can the small businesses. The thing about that graph, and that nobody else is really talking about, was the phrase Councilor Flaherty used, new growth. And the reason that bringing other businesses into town isn't giving us a whole lot of new growth is because the town isn't making that revenue, the city. And I would like to see the city start making that revenue. Since the PFAS contamination has responsible parties, including the city, the state, and the federal government, I think these three bodies need to work together to start some new economic development here that protects our natural resources, educates our children and our neighbors, and takes advantage of the fact that we are at the beginning of what is an enormous contamination problem in this country. There are more than 700, 800 military PFAS contamination sites. The state of New Hampshire just divulged that there were more than 500,000 PFAS dischargers in the United States. 500,000. People are going to need water testing, blood testing. They're going to need training. We should be setting up pilot programs here and then teaching other communities how to do it. We should be taking advantage of our university in this town and our neighboring universities like UMass. We should be inventing these businesses. That we have Whip City Fiber. We're going to bring Whip City Fiber to other communities. Why aren't we doing PFAS things for other communities? Why aren't we using, exactly like candidate Sullivan said, a new STEM and a pathway to future jobs? There's job growth in PFAS. We need to take advantage of that and take care of our residents. It's your turn.
If you start early, go.
It'll go green when you start, Dan.
This is one of those interesting questions. And obviously what you want for growth is industrial and commercial growth, because industry and commercial businesses don't have kids. It costs, at least it did 5 years ago, last time I wrote the story, it costs about $6,000 per child in our school. So if you're a family with 4 kids, and you're paying $8,000 a year in taxes, that's $16,000 that the city is investing in your kids that there's no return on immediately. The other difficult part is when you look at evaluation of houses, it depends on the quality. Parents shop around. That was one of the things I was amazed when I'd be talking to people at school committee meetings and stuff, that they chose Westfield because of a particular program in the schools. They also look at security. How good is your police department? How good is your fire department? We have paramedics in Westfield. And the general quality of life. What is there for amenities in the city? So you got two competing things here. You want the commercial industrial guys to come in, but you also need to maintain, if not increase, property values. And it gets to be one of those issues is which one do you water first, since water seems to be a big issue up here. And I really don't know. And that's my time.
Thank you.
We're now going to begin closing statements, and we're going to pick up where we've left off, and Mr. Mustrate will begin.
Okay. All righty, let's see where we're at. Okay, I would like to thank Westfield Chamber of Commerce, Westfield News for this forum. I'd like to thank everybody out in the audience attending here tonight. And I'd like to thank everybody that is listening and seeing this in the comfort of their home. This has been an enlightening process for me. Campaigning, going door to door, been very rewarding, talking to people and getting to know their concerns. And I'll just read a few things here. Westfield is at the crossroads of electing new people. Westfield needs to be sustainable not only with its environment, but also with its city government. Look to those candidates who are dedicated, going door to door, meeting Westfield residents every day and listening to their concerns. I have been doing just that since June, meeting with people, discussing the important issues that matter to them. My business background has prepared me to enter the political arena with excellent people, managerial, marketing, and fiscal skills. I believe I can bring a fresh new perspective to the council, as well as new ideas, in a respectful manner. And that's one point I like to make. In the last 3 to 4 years, respect on the council during a meeting, in my estimation, has not been good toward each other. We must have civil respect and civil talking points between each counselor, because everybody has different ideas, but you can respect their ideas. I consider Westfield my home. I want Westfield to prosper and flourish in the 21st century. We have to have a good quality of life. Nothing less will do. So all I can ask is, please join me in making responsible change my motto in government possible. I respectfully ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 5th. Thank you.
Well done. Hope, I'm going to go back to just a really simple question that you asked us as candidates for the newspaper, which is why run for office. And I spent a lot of time thinking about this, but my wife Lisa and I, Lisa's lived in this community, or her family's lived in this community for 4 generations. I'm a carpetbagger. I've only been here 55 years. But at the end of the day, we're committed to this community. It's where we decided to live for the last 32 years and raise a family. We also have contributed to the community by twice chairing the Noble Ball, by serving as president of the YMCA Board of Directors, 3 times running a capital campaign for the Boys and Girls Club, serving as board members for Amelia Park, corporators at the Athenaeum. We've been recognized by the Westfield Red Cross for our community service, and Lisa was awarded the Paul Harris Award by the Westfield Rotary Club. Westfield is a really special place. We were fortunate, our 3 children, Courtney, Kick, and Michael, graduated from Westfield High School, went on to great colleges, all now have professional careers because of the community of Westfield. The talented teachers, the administrators, the other departments that you come in contact with. Westfield is a really, really, really special place. And they married, and Ryan and Mari and Krista, and now Rico and Ash, the next generation, are here. And I think the next generation ought to have a special Westfield just like our kids did, just like we did growing up. And we can do that if we all work together. If we have a vision of what we want Westfield to be in the future, have discussions about how we're going to get there, make the decisions that are going to get there, have a plan. We don't need just charts. We need a plan to be able to discuss and move forward. And I think I can bring that to the Westfield City Council, so I humbly ask for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you.
Going door to door, you've made it clear that my top priority is to ensure residents are receiving clean and safe water, fixing our roads, and working to stop property tax increases. Unless Westfield gets a handle on our out-of-control spending, stops kicking the can down the road on obligations, we're going to have the same problems continue into the future. We have to level with employees. Our budget goes up $3 to $4 million a year. We're $6 million a year from hitting the levy ceiling, which means layoffs and cuts. The most important role for a city councilor is being a strong advocate for the people we represent. I noted when I first ran that many people are not being informed about the issues or are being outright ignored by their elected officials. Over the past 4 years, I've made it my mission to be in touch with you, to find out what's going on in the neighborhoods by holding neighborhood meetings and dealing with the issues that I find so that they can be fixed. It's imperative Westfield's spending money on the right projects at the right time, building efficiencies in city government, and stopping wasteful spending. Now, I want to address a slanderous email campaign, and we talk about tone, and I think some people up here are tone deaf, because there's a slanderous email campaign going on targeting some of the councilors up here tonight. It's bullying behavior, and it's full of innuendo, half-truths, and outright lies. The people of Westfield deserve better than this. We should be working together, not working to tear others down, who we may disagree with, and it's just a petty way to try to win an election. We need fresh thinking. Some of us are working to change the tone and to fix the problems we face, but we can't do this alone. We need your support. If you give me the honor of representing you for the next 2 years as a councilor at large, I'll continue to be an advocate for you on all issues, large and small. I'll always listen to what the residents are telling me, and I'll continue to work hard to ensure you receive strong representation. It's been my honor to represent Ward 3 and to represent all the citizens of Westfield as your voice at City Hall, and I do respectfully ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 5th.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hope, Kate, everyone, for being here and those listening. As I've said it before, and I'll say it again, I'm here because I enjoy it, because I believe I'm well qualified, because I have a proven independent record on the council for the 4 years that I served. And I care about our future. My wife, Melissa, is here, 17-year teacher veteran in our city schools. Our 3 boys are going through the schools, ages 11, 9, and 6. We need to show them more respect, as Councilor Bean pointed out. I'm here as a stakeholder in every sense of the word. I said it before, I'll just restate that. A parent, a homeowner, a resident, a taxpayer. I'm here to be a voice. I've proven myself for the 4 years that I served. I'm here to be the voice again. I've proven myself on the planning board for 7 years as a listener, so an arbiter of the facts, weighing of the issue, justifying my vote, standing by that vote, doing that vote for the best, what I think is the best in the interest of the city, and really, like I said, ushering in a greater sense of professionalism for this council and a decor that I think has been sorely lacking, and I think I can help to return. I'm not part of a slate of candidates. My campaign's not backed by political parties in Boston and political action committees. It's a committee to elect Matt Van Heineken, and is what it's always been and what it'll always be. I simply wish to serve as one of your at-large city councilors, to be a much-needed professional and independent voice, and I respectfully ask for your vote next Tuesday, November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, Ken, Pete, and Hope, and Kate, and thank you for what you do. Thank Tina Gorman. I know she was opened up the senior center, which we worked so many years to get. She's one of the best directors we have in the state. Seniors are very fortunate to have her, and I was very fortunate to vote for that senior center and serve on the board for 2 years when I wasn't on the council. Mayor Knappich put me on that committee to build a senior center, and we did it. Not by myself, with the help of a lot of the councilors here and a lot of the money from the people in the city, but I think the seniors well deserved it. I just want to take also a minute to thank Brian Sullivan. Good friend of mine, has done a wonderful job with the city. He's moving on. I've learned a lot from him. I don't think there's ever been a time when I haven't served with the Sullivans, one of them anyways, but their track record speaks for themselves. They're a great family, and God bless Kevin Sullivan. I'm sure he wishes he was here, and we certainly all miss him. I will continue to support education. I always have. Police and fire departments. I spend thousands of dollars out of my own pocket supporting those 3 things. Myself. I will continue to do everything we can to keep us safe, to keep our fire department and our ambulances rolling, because if I'm in an accident and my house is on fire, we want the best fire department, and I think we have it. We need to support them. It's a shame that these contracts for the police and fire haven't been The money is there, we just haven't voted on them. I have no idea why. It's all about getting together, you know. To Mike McCabe and Don Humison, the best of luck to you. They're both my friends. It's kind of a tough spot I'm in because they're both great people, and they're going to do great for the city. I will work with them just as I have with every other mayor in the city. Ralph Figge, you're going to do a great job for a month and a half, and Sue, you're going to be a great first lady. So to the residents of Westfield, this is where I was born, this is where I'm going to die. I'll do everything I can for you, and thank you for supporting me all these years. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. And thank you, Jim, for all that you do for the City of Westfield. Thank you to the Westfield Evening News and the Chamber of Commerce and the Westfield Technical Academy for hosting this event. Thank you to the people of Westfield for the opportunity to serve as your city councilor, especially the hardworking and dedicated city employees, to the police and fire department who keep us safe, and those who teach our children and make sure our kids arrive safely to and from school each day. I actually drove a school bus, so I know what it's like. But Westfield could write a book on how not to build a school. People are concerned with increasing property taxes, especially working families, single moms, small businesses, and seniors on fixed incomes. And there are no billion-dollar oil companies in town. As your city councilor, I listen to your concerns, and I work to be an independent voice on the council. One of the things I am most proud of is that people now believe they have a city council that listens to them. Your voice matters. That is why I introduced and passed the abutter notification ordinance, which notifies residents by mail and property owners within 500 feet of a proposed zone change. I wrote the ordinance on fire pits that allow residents the safe use of fire pits and small campfires and protected them from exorbitant or excessive fines. I work to represent everybody in Westfield, and I believe the best way to provide essential services, protect jobs, and hold the line on property taxes is with responsible city spending. That's why I voted against this year's budget. To answer Jim's question, some of the information we asked for, we still didn't get till about 21 minutes before the city council meeting. We don't hold up the budgets. We all share the same future in this community. We need to work together to make Westfield a great place to live. I ask for your support and one of your 7 votes for City Council at Large. Thank you.
I'd like to say thank you to everybody as well. To keep it short, but this is a great venue, great opportunity. Although quick with our answers, obviously our phone numbers and everything else are in front of you guys to ask more questions. I really care about the city. I take a little offense when someone down the line here says, you know, we need fresh voices. I'm it. I got 10 counselors with 4 years or less. You know, it's important, I think, to have some institutional knowledge. I think it's important to be able to turn to somebody and say, what did we do last time? I can bring that perspective. I'm just talking facts. I'm also one that votes. I don't prolong a vote. I don't sit there and ask constantly for more information to delay a vote. You get the information in front of you, and you move forward with that best information. It's not easy. It's not easy, and I do commend everybody here for putting themselves out there, especially in this climate of social media and anger. It's despicable what's happening, no doubt. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that I am here for the city of Westfield. You might not always agree with what my vote is, but you'll know why I voted a certain way, sort of like the water issue. I would have taken that vote if I was the lone no vote. I can't look anybody in the face and tell them when I had an opportunity to clean your water and I didn't take it. That's irresponsible. I know that becomes, you know, we really didn't talk about it much today other than a few candidates, but I would take that vote again in a second. Again, I do this because I think I bring a value, and on November 5th, I really would ask for your vote. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you to everyone in the audience. Thank you to those at home watching this. I think really it's important to become more educated and aware of who you're voting for. When I started out at the doors 2 years ago, I knocked on thousands of doors. There's been less this time between being a counselor, also have a little 4-year-old hockey player who's decided to start, which is consuming a whole bunch of time. But I'm still out there trying to hit as many doors as possible. And literally every single resident I have spoken to has been absolutely amazing. Definitely the best part of the job. Moving on from there, we have these labor contracts in front of us. Now we have contracts that haven't been approved. They were dragged out for political purposes to present them at this time of year. Well, now we have a mayor who's walking out on us prematurely. It's putting those contracts at risk and being able to ratify them before the end of the year. People wonder why their taxes are going up. Well, I told you earlier, 17.1% in 3 years is what the city payroll has increased. $12.7 million. There's your answer. We need to rein that in. As far as negativity and professionalism, I'll tell you what, I could show up at every meeting in a suit and tie and sit there and keep my mouth shut and go to ribbon cuttings and go to parades and everything else, but ultimately we're there to do a job. We're there to run the city. Yet we have certain individuals rubbing microphones, cutting us off. I've never been one of those people that has done that, but it's certainly been done to me. And as far as clean water goes, I'd vote against the bond again. The big thing is we needed to get temporary filtration while we come up with a permanent solution, because as the UMass researcher said, GAC does not work. Thank you.
Me again? All right. Thank you. That green light went on awfully fast, Kate. All right, it's still clicking. All right, I just want to go back to the business, give you a quick thing. There's only 8 businesses in town that have an assessed value more than 10 million. There's another 8 that have more than 5 million. There's 743 businesses in town. 567 of those are under $400,000 property value. These are small businesses that are owned by families and individuals. And we have to take that into account when we're setting tax rates and talking about the shift. The average property tax bill for a single-family home in Westfield was $2,032 in year 2000. It's now $4,611. That's a 227% increase for the average homeowner in Westfield. That's a gigantic tax increase. We have 8,000 seniors in town. Many of them are on fixed income. I don't know how they do that. I'm getting close to retirement age. I got a little bit ahead of most of these guys. But I'm considering how much it's going to cost me to live in the town that I love when I retire. Are we going to be able to afford it? That's a real concern for people. The hard limit on the taxes, by the way, and the charts, I know the charts are, interesting to say the least, but the math is the math is the math. You can't change the math. It's a reality. And when I say something is mathematically impossible, I'm a math guy. That means something to me. Mathematically impossible is a lot different than hard. Mathematically impossible is impossible. Go read some of the stuff I've written and do your own homework if you don't believe it. The council is here. But it is impossible to do some of the things that we're promising to people. We've promised employees benefits that we have absolutely no way to pay. Absolutely not. And I'm sorry to say that because I like the employees, but I'm doing my best to make sure we can try to honor that. But they're mathematically impossible right now. So in closing, Mary Ann Babinski reminded me of a nice quote, "Nobody can do everything, but everybody can do something." I'm asking you in the audience to do your something. Please cast one vote for me on November 5th, and please give me a team of people on the council that have the vision and have the work ethic to get things done. Thank you very much.
Councilor Harris, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm the only woman at large for the last 6 years, 1 out of 7 votes. This assures that every woman, being a daughter, being a wife, being a mother, being a sister, has a voice in our government. I want to also focus on the good and the good citizens in our city. This helps us all as a community rather than focusing on all the negatives. I'd also take exception to the fact that the mayor is not leaving us abandoned. The mayor is leaving for an opportunity for his own personal gain, because he has also a family that he has to support. Lastly, as another Veterans Day approaches, as a Gold Star daughter, My father was a Korean War casualty. I extend my heartfelt thanks to all veterans and their families who protected the United States throughout time. And I also thank all those actively serving and their families, heroes all. And I will say that a veteran sent me this card yesterday. You do not serve to bargain for reward or angle for applause. Thank you for faithfully serving the people of Westfield. And that is basically what I do. I do not flaunt what I do. I do not tell you who I serve in the off time as far as helping people. I truly, truly care about our city and our citizens, and I hope that that is enough for all of you. Thank you.
I'd like to thank Hope and the Westfield News and Kate and the Chamber of Commerce and the guys from Channel 15 and the Westfield Technical Academy. It takes a lot to put on something like this, and we really appreciate it. And thank you to all the other candidates for your time and your thoughts and for the respect that you've shown at this table tonight. I don't want to scare anybody, but there are many points you made that I agree with. And I'll get to those in just 1 minute, because I need to also thank Karen Paghetti for getting me into this, my mom for agreeing to be the treasurer for my campaign, because who else are you going to trust, and my nieces for giving up so much of their time with me in order for me to do this and the work I do with the water, and for all of the people that have donated and held signs for me. I love you all, and thank you for your faith in me. It has been an embarrassment watching the council lately, and it has been rude and disrespectful to the residents, to the voters, to the people who depend on the people on the council to represent them and do what's right for this city. It has been an embarrassment. PFAS is poison. It is poison, and it stays in your body. These are forever chemicals, and they build up in your body, and they bind to proteins, and they live in your bones and your organs, and they stay there. And people let you drink it, and it's wrong, and we need to do something about it. And rubbing microphones is despicable, and calling residents who speak at your public hearings a parade is revolting, and slamming your head on the desk and rolling your eyes and sending emails when you are doing council business at the table is wrong. And if you want someone else at that table to advocate for you, I would appreciate your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Who does that? Friends. Brent?
I basically consider this process a job interview. Got out the good tie and everything else. I'm not a politician. I'm not here to placate anybody. When you're talking about taxes and property values, two sure things in life, taxes and death. And unfortunately, I'm getting closer to the latter. I'll be 69. Well, I am 69. We graduated. Okay, I'm not pointing at you. Our high school class at St. Mary's just had our 50th anniversary reunion. For 30 years, when I was on that side of the table, I had to bite my tongue frequently because I know what was being said up front was different than what was being said in the hallway. And so I'm looking for the opportunity to be able to speak my mind. And like I said, I'm not here to placate anybody. I don't have an agenda. I have priorities, but I don't have an agenda. I'm asking for an opportunity to be able to jump into this. When I was covering all meetings, Public Works, Water, Planning Board, Water Commission, Conservation Commission, Historical Commission, I turn around and there would be Angie Holmes and Barbara Swords. To me, that's the way you get information directly from the horse's mouth. You have to be willing to put the time in and cover those people. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This concludes our final forum in our 2019 Candidate Forum Series. On behalf of Westfield News Reminder Publishing, I'd like to thank the Westfield Chamber of Commerce and Kate Phelan for being our co-sponsor for these forums. I'd like to thank the Westfield Public Schools, Westfield Technical Academy staff, especially the horticulture students. Don't forget about those flowers for sale. I'd like to thank our friends at Westfield Community Program, Channel 15, Pete Coles, Jake Paglucha, and especially Kenny Stomsky for all your hard work. I would like to thank Tina Gorman from the Westfield Senior Center for all the help she has given us and hosting us. And I'd like to thank all our candidates and everyone in our audience tonight and those watching and listening. And please vote November 5th. Thank you.